Elizabeth Peratrovich. From Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia, at en.wikipedia.org. Elizabeth Peratrovich, born Elizabeth Jean Wanamaker, Tlingit name Katglaat, born July 4th, 1911, died December 1st, 1958, was an American civil rights activist, Grand President of the Alaska Native Sisterhood, and member of the Tlingit Nation who worked for equality of Alaska Natives. In the 1940s, her advocacy was credited as being instrumental in the passing of Alaska's Anti-Discrimination Act of 1945, the first state or territorial anti-discrimination law enacted in the United States. In 1988, Alaska Governor Steve Cowper established April 21st as Elizabeth Peratrovich Day for her courageous, unceasing efforts to eliminate discrimination and bring about equal rights in Alaska. The date will later be changed to February 16th, in observations of the day in 1945 on which the Anti-Discrimination Act was approved. In March of 2019, her obituary was added to the New York Times as part of their Overlooked No More series. And in 2020, the United States Mint released a $1 coin inscribed with Peratrovich's likeness in honor of her historic achievements. The Peratrovich family papers, including correspondence, personal papers, and news clippings related to the civil rights work done by Peratrovich and her husband, are currently held at the Smithsonian National Museum of the American Indian. Section 1. Personal Life. Section 1.1. Early Life and Education. Elizabeth Wanamaker was born on July 1st, 1911, in Petersburg, Alaska, as a member of the Lukaksadi clan of the Raven Mardi of the Tlingit Nation, and with the Tlingit name of Kaksa, or people who pack for themselves. She was orphaned at a young age and adopted by Andrew and Jean Wanamaker, birth name Williams, who gave her the name Elizabeth Jean. Andrew was a fisherman and Presbyterian lay minister. The Wanamakers raised Elizabeth in Petersburg, Klawock, and Ketchikan, Alaska. Wanamaker graduated from Ketchikan High School and then attended Sheldon Jackson College in Sitka and the Western College of Education in Bellingham, Washington, now part of the Western Washington University. Section 1.2. Later Life. On December 15, 1931, Elizabeth Wanamaker married Roy Scott Peratrovich, born from 1908, died in 1989, also a Tlingit of mixed Native and Serb descent, who works in a cannery. They have 3 children, daughter Loretta Montgomery, and sons Roy Jr. and Frank. The family lived in Klawock, where Roy was elected to 4 terms as village mayor. Elizabeth Peratrovich was a member of the Presbyterian Church. The Peratroviches were concerned about racial discrimination and inequalities, looking for greater access to lawmakers who could effect change. They moved to Juneau, and even there found extensive social and racial discrimination against Alaska Native people. The Peratroviches were one of the first Indonesian families in Juneau to live in a non-native neighborhood, and Roy Jr. was one of the first Indonesian children to attend public schools there. The Peratrovich family later moved to Antigonish, Nova Scotia, Canada, where Roy studied the fishing industry at St. Francis Xavier University, the first Alaskan to do so on a United Nations fellowship. Later, they moved to Denver, Colorado, where Roy studied banking and finance at the University of Denver and credit procedure at the Central Bank and Trust Company in Denver. In the 1950s, the Peratroviches moved to Oklahoma, where Roy took up a position with the federal government, and then moved back to Alaska when Elizabeth fell ill. Elizabeth Peratrovich died after battling breast cancer on December 1st, 1958 at the age of 47. She is buried at Evergreen Cemetery in Juneau, Alaska, along her husband, Roy, who died in 1989. Their eldest son, Roy Jr., a partner in the engineering firm of Peratrovich, Notreham and Drag, became a noted civil engineer in Alaska and designed the Brotherhood Bridge in Juneau, which carries the Glacier Highway over the Mendenhall River. Besides being an engineer, Roy Peratrovich Jr. is also a native artist. Her younger son, Frank, worked as an area tribal operations officer for the Bureau of Indian Affairs in Juneau. Section 2. Activism. In 1941, while living in Juneau, Alaska, Elizabeth and Roy Peratrovich encountered discrimination in their attempts to secure housing and gain access to public facilities. They petitioned the territorial governor, Ernest Gruening, to prohibit public places from posting signs such as "No natives allowed," "We cater to white trade only," "No dogs, no natives," that were common in Alaska during this time. With the help of others, Elizabeth and Roy Peratrovich drafted and introduced an anti-discrimination bill in 1941, though it failed to pass. Nevertheless, they persevered as high-ranking representatives of the Alaska Native Brotherhood and the Alaska Native Sisterhood. The Peratroviches used their unique position to bring attention to the issue of discrimination and to lobby Alaska lawmakers, the governor, and others to advocate for a passage of anti-discrimination legislation. In one instance, according to their granddaughter, Betsy Peratrovich, they decided to invite a legislator to join them for coffee, taking the opportunity to plead their case. When the invitation was accepted, they took the small amount of spare change they had brought in to the meeting, worrying the whole time that they wouldn't have enough to pay if anything other than coffee was ordered. Thankfully, not only did they just had enough money to pay for the beverages, but the meeting was productive. There were many grassroots efforts in those days, including efforts by countless other Alaska Native people who took steps to overcome and raise awareness of widespread inequalities and instances of blatant injustice. In 1945, representing the Alaska Native Brotherhood and Sisterhood, they again brought an anti-discrimination bill before the Alaska Senate. Last to testify, Elizabeth Peratrovich took to the floor and delivered an impassioned speech, calling for equal treatment of indigenous peoples. In reaction to the bill, Juneau Territorial Senator Alan Shattuck asked, "Who are these people, barely out of Sagagary, who want to associate with us whites, with 5,000 years of recorded civilization behind us?" Elizabeth Peratrovich responded, "I would not have expected that I, who am barely out of savagery, would have been remind gentlemen with 5,000 years of recorded citizenship behind them, of our Bill of Rights." The Senate voted 11 out of 5 for House Resolution 14, providing, quote, full and equal accommodations, facilities, and privileges to all citizens in places of public accommodations with the jurisdiction of the territory of Alaska to provide penalties for violation, end quote. The bill was signed into law by Governor Gruening in 1945, nearly 20 years before the U.S. Congress passed the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Acts of the territorial legislative required final approval from the U.S. Congress, which affirmed it. Bob Bartlett, Alaskan delegate, was known for his efficiency in passing legislation. Alaska thus became the first territory or state to end Jim Crow, since 18 states banned discrimination in public accommodations in the 3 decades following the Civil War. Not until 1955 would 2 more states, New Mexico and Montana, followed suit. Peratrovich's testimony has been widely credited as a decisive factor in the passage of the historical Anti-Discrimination Act of 1945. In 1992, Fran Ulmer, who represented Juneau in the Alaska House of Representatives and who later became legislative governor of Alaska, said the following about Peratrovich's testimony. She talked about herself, her friends, her children, and the cruel treatment that consigned Alaska natives to a second-class existence. She described to the Senate what it means to be unable to buy a house in a decent neighborhood because natives aren't allowed to live there. She described how children feel when they are refused entrance into movie theaters or see signs in shop windows that read, "No dogs or natives allowed." The Peratrovich family papers, including correspondence, personal papers, and news clippings related to the civil rights work done by Elizabeth and Roy Peratrovich, are currently held at the Smithsonian National Museum of the American Indian. In 1988, the Alaska State Legislative declared February 16th as Elizabeth Peratrovich Day. Section 3. Legacy and Honors. An image accompanies this section of the article with the caption, 2020 Native American $1 coin. In April of 1988, Alaska Governor Steve Cowper established April 21st as Elizabeth Peratrovich Day for her courageous, unceasing efforts to eliminate discrimination and bring about equal rights in Alaska. The date was later changed to February 16th, in observance of the day in 1945 on which the Anti-Discrimination Act was approved. The Elizabeth Peratrovich Award was established in her honor in the Alaska Native Sisterhood. In 1992, Gallery B of the Alaska House of Representatives chamber in the Alaska State Capitol was renamed in her honor. Of the 4 galleries located in the respective 2 chambers, the Peratrovich Gallery is the only one named for someone other than a former legislator. The other House Gallery was named for Warren A. Taylor. The Senate galleries were named for former Senators Cliff Groh and Robert H. Zingler. In 2003, a park in downtown Anchorage was named for Elizabeth and Roy Peratrovich. It encompasses the lawn surrounding Anchorage's former city hall, with a small amphitheater in which concerts and other performances are held. In 2009, for the rights of all, ending Jim Crow in Alaska, a documentary about Peratrovich's groundbreaking civil rights advocacy premiered on October 22nd at the Alaska Federation of Natives convention in Anchorage. The film, scheduled to air as a PBS documentary film in November 2009, was produced by Blueberry Productions Incorporated and was primarily written by Jeffrey Lloyd Silverman of Anchorage. In 2017, the theater in Ketchikan's Southeast Alaska Discovery Center was named in honor of Elizabeth Peratrovich, and a companion exhibit exploring her role in the struggle for Alaska Native civil rights was unveiled. In 2018, Elizabeth Peratrovich was chosen by the National Women's History Project as one of the honorees for Women's History Month in the United States. In March 2019, her obituary was added to the New York Times as part of their Overlooked No More series. On October 5, 2019, the United States Mint Chief Administrative Officer Patrick Hernandez announced that Peratrovich would appear on the reverse of the 2020 Native American $1 coin, making her the first Alaska Native to be featured on U.S. currency. In December of 2019, a 4-story apartment building called Elizabeth Place, named after Peratrovich, opened in downtown Anchorage. In January 2020, Peratrovich was selected as one of the 20 for 2020 highlighting extraordinary accomplishments by women. In July 2020, a new mural was unveiled in honor of Peratrovich in Petersburg. On December 30th, 2020, a Google Doodle in the United States and Canada honored Elizabeth Peratrovich. The doodle was drawn by Tlingit artist Michelia Gord. This day was chosen because it was on this date in 1941 where the Peratroviches, after seeing a No Natives Allowed sign, decided to submit a petition to the governor. In September 2021, a mural of Peratrovich created by Tlingit artist Crystal Worrell was installed on the exterior of the Juneau Public Library Marine Park Garage in Juneau, Alaska. In early November of 2021, the first episode, entitled Molly and Elizabeth, from the second season of the PBS Kids animated educational series, Molly of Denali, aired, and depicts the primarily Native Alaskan youth regular characters in the series, Molly Mabray and her best friend, Tui Okami, as remembering the legacy of Elizabeth Peratrovich. When 2 tourists visited Alaska, are depicted as stating that the young pair didn't look native enough for their need for native tour guides. This sound file and all text in the article are licensed under the Creative Commons Attribution Sharealike 3.0 Unported license. This article was recorded on the 25th of February, 2024.